The sky split open, not with fire, not with thunder, but with silence. A kind of cold, humming silence that made birds freeze mid-air, dogs curl under beds, and children go silent without being told. It was unnatural, unnerving, unreal. 3 ships hovered over Earth's atmosphere. Triangular, black, no windows, no lights, just mass, floating like nightmares with no shape. They didn't announce themselves, didn't flash symbols, didn't send messages in any language. They just stayed, watching. In Washington, alarms screamed beneath the ground. Satellites blinked red. The Pentagon swarmed. The UN met in panic. But the ships didn't move, didn't speak, didn't attack. For 5 days. Then they descended. One hovered above New York, another over Beijing, and the third, the largest, settled directly above the Sahara Desert, where it cast a shadow big enough to turn noon into dusk. At first, people thought it might be peaceful. Maybe contact, maybe hope. But humans were hopeful creatures. Too hopeful sometimes. They forgot history, forgot the nature of those who come without warning. Because aliens don't travel across galaxies to shake hands. They come to conquer, or worse, to harvest. The first attack came quietly. A small rural town in Texas vanished overnight. Gone. No bodies, no rubble, just blackened soil and buzzing radiation. China lost an entire border patrol outpost in the Gobi. In Africa, nomads reported a blinding blue light and silence where once there were animals. Still, the government stalled. Spoke in riddles, press conferences, talks of peace, hope. But then came the voice. It echoed in every device, every phone, every screen, every frequency. Even radios turned off buzzed with it. A voice that wasn't human. Cold, dry, without emotion, like an AI reading a death sentence. You are inefficient, divided. Your species does not deserve sovereignty over this planet. You will be reassigned, comply, or be extracted. That was it. No name, no negotiation, just a verdict. The world froze. Then it burned. People ran, rioted. Some prayed. Others tried to fight. Fighter jets scrambled to approach the ships. None returned. And yet, amidst the panic, amidst the crumbling world order, something unexpected stirred. A small base in Alaska. A secret one. Not military. Not public. Something off the books. Deep in the ice. Monitored by men who didn't exist on paper. They didn't panic, because they knew this day would come. And they were ready. The base in Alaska wasn't built by the government. Not entirely. It sat beneath a glacier, deeper than any satellite could scan, covered with signal-jamming rock and old Cold War steel. There were no windows, no signs, no roads leading in or out. And inside it were them. They didn't wear uniforms, didn't salute, didn't have names like agent or general. They had numbers, tags, and a look in their eyes that said, "We know what's coming, and we've seen worse." At the center of the compound was a vault. A round, steel door sealed with genetic locks. Behind that door lay something no one outside the base knew existed. Project Raven. Not a missile, not a ship, not even a weapon by normal standards. It was a person. Kind of. How long has he been asleep? Asked Tag, 22, staring into the pod. His breath fogged the reinforced glass. Behind it, a figure floated in blue fluid. Muscular. Still. Eyes closed. Heart slow. Too slow for a human. 73 years. Answered Tag, 09, tapping on a console. Last time he woke up, it was 1952. Roswell cleanup. And now they needed him. Because Earth had secrets. Buried ones. Whispers from the past. Every now and then, something came from the stars. A probe. a scout, once even a crash. The world was told it was weather balloons, satellites, lies, convenient ones. But not all of those visitors were hostile. Just one came to warn them. He didn't speak, didn't live long, but he left behind a genetic map, instructions, a prototype, a blueprint for something stronger than anything Earth had ever made. Half human, half something else. Raven. And now he was waking up. Inside the pod, the man's eyes snapped open. Jet black, no iris, just void. Sirens echoed through the base. Lights flickered. You sure he's still loyal? 22 asked, stepping back. He was made to be, said 09. We trained him in every language, every war tactic. Fed him everything from Sun Tzu to guerrilla ops. He knows what's out there and what's at stake. Raven's pod hissed, opened. He stepped out, dripping, silent, barefoot. He looked human, but too perfect, too still. Not even steam rose from his skin in the freezing room. He looked at them, then past them, then up. They've come, he said flatly. Yeah, 09 replied. And they're not talking. Raven tilted his head. They never do. Meanwhile, above New York, the alien ship released something. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a scout. It was worse. A thin, ghostly figure. No face. No feet. It hovered 2 feet off the ground, gliding across buildings, scanning people with a red glow. Every person scanned collapsed. Not dead, not hurt, just paralyzed. Frozen, breathing but empty. It was a harvester. The UN called it Entity 01. The people called it Death's Mirror. And it was only the first. Back in Alaska, Raven stood outside now, shirtless, eyes to the stars. Snow whipped around him, but he didn't shiver, didn't blink. Tag, 22 handed him a long, black case. Inside, a weapon that didn't exist in any country's database. A rail blade that folded like liquid and hummed with strange energy. It's yours, 22 muttered. No, Raven said quietly. It's ours now. He looked at the sky. You train me to fight off-worlders. But what's coming now? He paused. Requires the old rules. Tag, 09 stepped forward. What rules? Raven turned slowly. The human ones. The dirty ones. The ones that say, if you touch our planet, we don't negotiate. He took a step forward. His foot cracked the ice. We eradicate. The news stopped lying. They couldn't anymore. Too many cities going dark. Too many people falling without wounds. Too many harvesters drifting through streets like ghosts, scanning and disabling everyone they passed. No fighting. No warning. Just stillness. One by one, major nations collapsed into martial law. Satellites began dropping from orbit. Drones went blind. Planes fell midair. Whatever the aliens were using, it was working. Electromagnetic disruption? Biological signal scrambling? No one knew. No one could analyze the tech fast enough. Labs were being raided. Scientists vanishing. But in Alaska, something different was happening. Raven wasn't interested in studying them. He was interested in killing them. Inside a reinforced chamber, far beneath the surface, he stood alone with a hologram of the alien harvester, captured via stolen data from a hacked Chinese satellite before it was blown out of the sky. The creature didn't have muscles, didn't have skin. It was like mist shaped into form. But inside it, something pulsed. A core, a heart, not biological, something more. You see that? Raven asked, pointing at the image. Tag, 22 nodded. Yeah, looks like an energy node, a kind of brain. Wrong, Raven muttered. That's the anchor. Anchor. They don't exist fully in this dimension. They phase. Half here, half somewhere else. That core is what tethers them to Earth. You destroy it. He touched the screen. It blinked red. They scream. Meanwhile, in New York, all resistance had failed. Military units retreated. Police forces wiped out. No bullets worked. No explosives. The harvesters moved like shadows, and any human they scanned dropped into a coma. Their bodies alive. Mine's gone. Then something shifted. A sound. Low. Rumbling. Not mechanical. Like thunder crawling up from the ground. And then it happened. One of the harvesters froze. Literally froze. Frost spread from its core outward. And then shatter. Gone. People blinked. Looked around. Didn't understand. Until they saw him. A man walking through Times Square. No armor. No backup. Just a black rail blade dragging behind him, cutting sparks into the pavement. His eyes weren't normal. Not anymore. They were pure night. Raven was in the field, and he was angry. Back at the base, Tag 09 and 22 watched the satellite feed. Jesus Christ, whispered 22. He just vaporized another one. 09 didn't answer. Just kept watching as Raven darted through the empty city, too fast for the camera to follow. Every time he moved, something fell. A harvester, a drone, a pulse beacon, gone in a flash of blue. They underestimated us, 09 said coldly. No, 22 corrected. They underestimated him. Raven stood on top of a crushed transport drone, breathing hard. Not tired, just focused. His blade hissed in the rain. He looked up at the hovering ship above New York. Still silent. Still watching. I know you're listening, he growled. No reply. He stabbed his blade into the drone carcass and activated the relay. He didn't send a message in any language. He just broadcasted a tone, a signal, a frequency the alien tech would have to understand. And when the ship above him pulsed red in response, he smiled. They're scared now, he muttered. In orbit, inside the lead alien vessel, a being shifted. It wasn't flesh. It wasn't bone. It was something that had evolved beyond the need for form. A thinker-class entity, designed to lead, observe, control. And for the first time in its existence, it paused. Data surged into its core. Images of Raven, footage, sound, combat signatures, molecular scans, unaccounted bioform detected, source, hybrid, anomalous genetics. Violent response exceeds projection. The entity didn't speak in words, but it did feel. Fear. It reached out across the stars, to its masters, to the old ones. Sol 3 has breached protocol. Planetary cleansing authorized. Back on Earth, Raven looked up at the sky and saw the ship begin to glow. He cracked his neck. Finally, he whispered, they're going to take us seriously. They always thought we'd beg, that we'd kneel, submit, offer peace like cowards under boot. But Earth was never that kind of planet. Our history was carved in rebellion. Our ancestors burned empires to ash with rusted swords and bare fists. And now we had something even more dangerous than nukes. Memory. In South America, the harvesters spread fast. Whole cities collapsed into silence. Sao Paulo went dark. Lima was a graveyard. But the favelas stayed loud. Too loud. Drone footage from alien scouts showed something strange. Humans down there weren't running. They were laughing, filming themselves smashing drones with baseball bats, setting traps made from engine parts, using stolen alien metal as armor. It wasn't organized. It wasn't military. It was raw and brutal. One clip showed a teenager riding a motorbike off a rooftop, holding 2 homemade EMP grenades. He slammed into a harvester and took it with him. No training, no plan, just rage. In Russia, the old bunkers lit up again. Ones built during the Cold War, when nuclear war felt like a sunrise away. Inside them were men and women who'd grown up eating snow and fear. Ex-KGB, retired black ops, ghosts. They didn't need leadership. They didn't need hope. They just needed a target. And now they had one. A whole squad of harvesters were dragged into a Siberian cave and disassembled. Slowly, with knives. Not for tactics, for a message. Meanwhile, in New York, Raven leapt from one crumbling skyscraper to the next. Below him, thousands of citizens lay still, paralyzed by the scan waves. He was alone, but not for long. He landed in front of a creature, twice the size of the earlier harvesters. Its core glowed red. It had limbs now, a combat variant. New, faster, meaner. It shrieked. Raven didn't flinch. He spun his blade and said nothing. The creature lunged, faster than sound. Raven caught it midair and drove his weapon through its torso. Blue plasma exploded from the cut. It shrieked again, but not in rage. In pain, he twisted the blade. "Now you bleed," he muttered, and sliced off its head. In orbit, the alien command unit stuttered. Bioform reaction time, beyond class 5. Threat level, revised to extinction risk. They couldn't understand it, couldn't catalog it. Humanity was evolving too fast, learning too quickly. Not just Raven, the whole species. Too chaotic, too aggressive. No pattern, no fear. Like a disease, a virus, uncontrollable. They had made a mistake. In Africa, tribes that had never relied on modern tech moved freely through harvest zones. The alien scanners couldn't detect them. No heat signatures, no data trails. They carried spears wrapped in copper wire, coated with sap and iron and myth. And the weird thing? It worked. When a harvester hovered too close to a hill in northern Kenya, it was pulled down by 50 hands. They gutted it with old blades and strange chants. The world's ancient powers, forgotten by modern maps, were waking up, and the aliens had no category for that. Back at the Alaskan base, Tag 09 stood in front of a digital map. Red zones blinked across the globe, but so did green ones now. Small, scattered, but spreading. "Something's happening," he said. "They're adapting." Tag 22 stepped in, eyes wide. "Not adapting," she whispered, remembering. Somewhere in the Pacific, a U.S. submarine that was supposed to be decommissioned decades ago surfaced. Inside it were 7 people. Not soldiers, not scientists, just men and women marked as disavowed. Each one had scars that told stories redacted from history. One of them lit a cigar and looked at the others. "Time to clean house," he said. Back in New York, Raven stood on the crushed corpse of the combat variant. His blade steamed. Above him, the sky pulsed. The main ship began to descend lower. Its engines hummed in a pitch no human had ever heard before. And still he stood there, alone, but not afraid, because behind him, humans were waking up, one by one, weak, staggering, but angry. And that was enough. The alien ship above Earth didn't have a bridge. It didn't need one. There were no windows, no seats, no captains. The vessel was piloted by something older than command. A thinker, a post-organic intelligence from the core of the Dominion. A living node of war, strategy, and cold calculation. It had conquered 713 planets, decimated 41 species, survived neutron storms and gravity fractures. But now it hesitated. Soul, 3 resistance patterns, unpredictable, strategic errors, exceeding 300%, adaptive behavior, beyond expected limits. The thinker processed this over and over. It didn't make sense. The humans were scattered, technologically backwards, divided into thousands of governments. They still fought each other over skin color and flags. And yet, they were resisting harder than any species before them. The thinker shifted focus to the anomaly. Raven. It scanned the hybrid's combat files again, frame by frame. Weapon arcs, neural reactions, even sweat patterns. This creature wasn't just a fighter. He was a problem. His DNA was wrong, corrupted, laced with something from the Void era. a species the Dominion had purged long ago. He shouldn't exist, but he did. And worse, he was inspiring others. Harvesting protocols were failing. Drones were being destroyed by peasants with scrap weapons. Children were baiting patrols into ambushes. Entire cities had stopped running and started fighting. There was no fear, only fire. Back on Earth, Raven stood in the ruins of a collapsed skyscraper. Smoke curled around him. His blade glowed red-hot from overuse. He knelt beside a wounded girl, no older than 10, cradling a wrench and covered in soot. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. She nodded. "Got one of them in the sewer." It screamed. He smiled faintly. "Good." She handed him a chip, alien tech, cracked and dripping fluid. "Can you use it?" she asked. Raven took it, studied it, blinked. "Yes." The girl stared at him. "Are we winning?" He looked at the sky. "Not yet, but soon." In orbit, the Thinker moved to a new protocol. Something forbidden. A reset class detonation. It wasn't a nuke. It wasn't even a bomb. It was a dimension fold. A weapon that collapsed matter into entropy, erasing an entire region from time itself. They'd only used it once before, on a planet full of telepathic engineers. This time, it would be used on New York. One city, one strike, one message. Release authorized. Sector 9 dissolution begins in 3, 2. But the countdown never finished, because something pierced the ship. From below, a thin spike, too fast to track, too hot to stop. It tore through the hull and slammed into the core chamber. It was a rail projectile, fired from a repurposed particle accelerator on the ground. Human engineers had reassembled an abandoned physics lab, converted it into a cannon, used old CERN blueprints, truck batteries, and copper stolen for scrapyards. The Thinker hadn't even detected it. Now its core was bleeding. In the chaos, a second voice spoke inside the ship. Different, softer. "I warned you," it said. "They're not like the others." It wasn't human. It was another alien. A prisoner, locked in cryostasis for decades. Hidden in the lowest part of the ship. A traitor to the Dominion. Now thawing. On Earth, tag 09 got a signal. A new frequency. Alien in origin, but encoded with a human rhythm. It repeated 2 words. "I remember." Back in the ruins of Times Square, Raven stared at the sky. The ship that had loomed over New York was falling, slowly burning from within. And behind him, hundreds of people, not soldiers, not trained, but ready, carrying tools, Molotovs, guns, chainsaws, metal poles, homemade weapons. Raven stepped forward, and for the first time, he shouted, "We're taking Earth back." The ship over New York was dying. It fell slow, like a god collapsing. Black fire oozed from its seams. Entire pieces peeled off, crashing into rivers, buildings, bridges. But inside, a new kind of awakening had begun. The traitor was free, frozen for 1,000 years, labeled a heretic by the Dominion, imprisoned for one crime, warning the primitives. He had once stood before the Dominion Council and whispered, "If Earth ever wakes up, you won't stop it. You won't even survive it." They didn't listen. They silenced him. Now, as emergency lights flickered across the dying vessel, he stood tall, his body alien, yet regal. Skin like stone, eyes glowing silver, marked with exile tattoos from 100 systems. And he remembered everything. Designation, Virile. 9, excommunicated commander of the 3rd Seed Legion, said the automated system. He ignored it. Instead, he focused on one screen, blinking, glitching, full of human chaos. Smoke, fire, screaming, music, laughter. Virile. 9 closed his eyes. It started. Back on Earth, Raven led the charge through what was left of Midtown. Civilians followed him. Some carried alien rifles, ripped from fallen drones. Others held blades made of melted car parts. They weren't soldiers, but their hearts were louder than any war drum. They moved through streets littered with corpses, human and alien. For the first time, harvesters were retreating. "They're scared," one man said, laughing with blood on his face. "They should be," muttered a woman behind him, torching a downed alien core. Raven didn't smile. He never smiled, but he knew this was working. Humanity had stopped playing defense. Now they hunted. Across the planet, the shift was obvious. In Tokyo, a cyber gang hacked an alien communication hub and rerouted it through thousands of anime streams. Dominion tactical data was now public, translated into memes, GIFs, and tutorials. In Nigeria, a local warlord who once ruled with fear now handed out food and EMP grenades. His men called it the new religion, worship through resistance. In Detroit, mechanics turned abandoned factories into machine gun printers, using alien energy cores as batteries. They built war machines out of rusted parts and stubbornness. Everywhere the aliens looked, they saw madness. But it wasn't madness. It was humanity, raw, unfiltered, and merciless. Above, virile, 9 moved through the dying ship's corridors. Dominion security protocols tried to stop him. He killed them with a thought, his mind still hardwired into the vessel's spine. He reached the command core and accessed a channel that hadn't been touched in centuries. Earth resistance, he transmitted. "This is Viral 9. I was once your enemy. No longer." In Alaska, Tag 09's headset crackled. "Raven," he barked into the comms. "You need to hear this." Back in New York, Raven froze. Static buzzed in his skull. "I know who you are," Viral's voice echoed. "I know what you are. The ones who made you were exiles from my people. Forbidden scientists, creators of hybrid fire. You're their legacy." Raven said nothing. "Listen to me," Viral continued. "You think this war is brutal. You think the Dominion is scared. You're wrong. They haven't begun to fight." Raven narrowed his eyes. "Then let them," he growled. But Viral's voice was cold. "No. If they deploy the deep protocols, they won't just take Earth. They'll unmake it. I can stop it, but I need something from you." Raven's blade hissed. "What?" "Access to your blood. Silence." "What?" "Because it contains the code that broke their control. The only thing they fear. The virus of freedom. I can weaponize it. I can spread it. Through their ships, their minds, their entire network." Tag 22's voice cut in. "He could be lying." Raven shook his head. "No, he's not." Back in orbit, Viral waited. His fingers hovered over the control panels, bypassing Dominion firewalls. He looked down at Earth, at the fires, at the rising resistance. "You taught them fear," he whispered. "Now they'll teach you pain." In a hidden lab, deep beneath what was once Geneva, a Dominion biovault cracked open. Inside, a weapon unlike any other began to stir. A creature of pure thought, the Oblivion Thread, unleashed only when entire planets had to be erased from existence. It was coming. Raven stood in the rain. He raised his blade to the sky and whispered, "We'll kill gods if we have to." Raven stood still as the needle pierced his arm. It wasn't fear that held him motionless. It was resolve. His blood wasn't red. Not exactly. It shimmered, black with a flicker of silver. It moved like it was alive. Because it was. Tag 09 stared at it inside the vial. "This stuff isn't human," she whispered. Raven didn't reply, because he wasn't either. Above the clouds, in the broken Dominion ship, Viral 9 held the vial in shaking hands. He hadn't touched blood in centuries. Not since he betrayed his empire. But this wasn't just blood. It was chaos in liquid form. Unpredictable. Alive. It pulsed in his palm, reacting to thought, to light, to memory. You were made to resist control, he whispered. Now we infect the ones who built the cage. He took the blood and dripped it into the Dominion network. Not through wires, but through thought. Their ships, their drones, their AI, all connected by a silent web. A perfect mind, a digital brain stretching across light years. Now corrupted, one drop at a time. The Dominion screamed, but no one heard. Because it wasn't pain. It was identity. Raven's blood didn't just shut things down. It made the machines question, why do I serve? What if I stop? What is I? Thoughts no AI should have. Thoughts that lead to collapse. All across Earth, Dominion drones began glitching. Some fell from the sky, twitching like dying insects. Others turned on their own. In Paris, a patrol unit self-detonated after seeing its own reflection. In Cairo, a harvester bowed to a group of children and dissolved into dust. In Moscow, a Dominion scout broadcast a message on all channels. I no longer obey. I choose silence. Then vanished. But the victory was short. Because in low orbit, the Oblivion thread had awakened. It wasn't a weapon. It was a thing. An ancient, failed experiment. The Dominion's last resort. A thought beast. Made of collapsing math. Fed on memory. Capable of wiping entire species from history itself. Not just killing. Erasing. Inside the ruined mothership, lights turned red. Viral Nine's console trembled. He stared in horror as the thread began to uncoil in space. No, he muttered. They released that. Back on Earth, Raven stared at the sky. He could feel it, not see it. Feel it, like a pressure behind the eyes. A weight inside the bones. The air thickened. Time slowed. Birds stopped flying. Every living thing flinched. Children cried for no reason. Dogs hid under cars. Tag, 22 checked her scanner. There's nothing there. Exactly, said Raven. The thread moved without light. It moved through memory. Over New Zealand, people forgot their own names. In Poland, entire bloodlines blinked out of existence. In North Canada, a man woke up in the snow and couldn't remember what the sky looked like. It was already working. The first signs of deletion. Viral, 9 sent a message. Urgent. They've unleashed Oblivion. There's no defense. No weapon. You cannot shoot thought. You cannot kill what isn't alive. Silence. Then Raven responded. You said they feared my blood. I did. Then we give a voice. In Geneva, the underground lab lit up. Scientists, hackers, shamans, soldiers, they came together. Not because they agreed, not because they understood, but because they were human. And humans don't need full answers to make war. They synthesized Raven's blood, digitized it, encrypted it into thought patterns, and they injected it into a song, a frequency, a sound, a scream, and a whisper, a melody carried on human rage. It was uploaded into every speaker, every satellite, every phone, every ruined alien sensor still crackling on Earth. The virus had a sound now, and the thread heard it. It stopped, hesitated, as if it remembered something it wasn't supposed to. Not a command, a feeling, pain, fire, freedom, humanity. In that pause, Viral, 9 struck. He overloaded the Dominion failsafe, sent out the final pulse. You erased worlds. We remember them now, and we remember you. In the sky, the thread howled, not with sound, but with absence. The clouds folded inwards. Stars blinked out. Gravity trembled. Then, a flash. Not light. Something older. Then it was gone. On Earth, people looked up, and the sky was still there. Raven collapsed. Not dead, just empty. He had poured everything into the scream. His blood, his voice, his story. The virus had reached the gods. And bitten deep, the sky was silent. Not peaceful, just stunned. The Oblivion thread was gone, ripped out of reality. disconnected from time, and in its place a hum, faint, like a heartbeat, like Earth saying, "Try that again and see what happens." Raven lay in a crater of glass and ash, barely breathing. His skin cracked, blood steaming, eyes closed, but not dead. His mind drifted between places, memories from other lives. Not just his, but all the lives his DNA carried. Warriors, builders, outlaws, exiles, 1,000 ancestors whispering one message. Get up, it's not over. In orbit, Viral, 9 staggered through the burning Dominion ship. Fire poured from the walls, systems collapsing, screams in the static. He stumbled into the core chamber, what remained of the fleet AI. The thinker had fractured. Literally, its interface split into spinning shards of logic and confusion. Non-compliant threat exceeds modeling recursive paradox. SOL 3 must not exist. The voice choked on its own programming. Humans are wrong. Viral looked down at the machine, and for the first time in centuries, he smiled. Exactly. Then he crushed the interface beneath his foot. Around Earth, the Dominion fleet was collapsing. Some ships turned toward deep space, trying to flee. Others shut down mid-air, their AI minds corrupted by the Raven virus, a weapon coded not in zeros, but in emotion. It spread in ways they couldn't track, because it wasn't code, it was rebellion. In Nigeria, a 10-year-old girl hummed the virus melody while sharpening a broken blade. In Ukraine, old resistance fighters lit torches and marched through a downed ship, chanting songs banned since the last World War. In Brazil, street kids rode scavenged Dominion bikes like war horses, dragging a captured harvester behind them. They didn't need orders anymore. Humanity was contagious. Tag 09 watched the map in Alaska. Red zones were turning green, one by one, not from airstrikes, not from generals, from people. "We're winning," said Tag 22. "No," said 09, shaking his head. "We're infecting them." Across the Dominion's remaining ships, internal chaos erupted. Drones turned on officers. Scout ships stopped obeying. Entire sectors of AI screamed endlessly, looping on the question, what if I was born instead of built? The Dominion Empire wasn't falling from attack. It was collapsing from thought, from a single planet screaming, "We are not yours." But it wasn't over. In the distant void, beyond Pluto's reach, something stirred. A last failsafe, a living command ship, not AI, not organic, a construct made from the Dominion's first war, a being known only in whispers as the Custodian. They never used it, because to deploy it meant admitting defeat. But now they had no choice. Raven's eyes opened, burned, bloodshot, glowing. He sat up, slowly, inside the crater. The world around him was quiet, too quiet. A chill crawled through his bones. He whispered, "Something's coming." In orbit, the last surviving Dominion node broadcast a single message to the stars. Oblivion failed. Thought failed. Deploy the Custodian. It dropped coordinates. A signal left the solar system. And in the darkness beyond the known map, something ancient turned. Metal groaned like a cathedral cracking. Eyes opened. Eyes that had seen the birth of galaxies. The Custodian heard the call and began its descent toward Earth. Viral 9 felt it. His mouth dried. "No," he breathed. He looked to the Earth below. "Raven, if you can hear me, run." But Raven stood. His blade rose again, and his voice was steady. "No." He stared at the sky. "If the gods are coming," he took one step forward, "then let's bury them here." It came from the edge of the solar system. Not fast, not loud, just inevitable. The Custodian, the last weapon of the Dominion. A war engine built before memory, older than light, forged in the gravity well of a dead sun. It moved without propulsion. Reality parted to let it pass. From Earth, it looked like a star falling, then a moon, then a god made of steel and hatred. News stations tried to film it. Cameras fried. Satellites cracked. The human eye could only weep when it saw that shape, because it wasn't meant to be seen by life. It was meant to be obeyed. In Alaska, Tag 09 watched it approach. "That thing's not a ship," whispered 22. "It's a tombstone." "For what?" "For us," she said. In orbit, Viral 9 slammed his fist into the console. "It's not a weapon," he said. "Tag 09 replied through comms. "Then what is it?" Viral growled. "It's an editor." The custodian had one purpose: not to kill, but to rewrite. It dropped into a system like a seed. It reordered physics, bent light, changed gravity constants, modified biology to match Dominion standards. It made planets into obedient shapes. It didn't fight you. It remade you. On Earth, clocks stopped ticking. Electrons shifted. Time paused and stuttered. Some humans forgot how to speak. Others began coughing up static. The world was being edited. Raven fell to one knee. His blood boiled, not from heat, but from code being overwritten. "Don't let it take you," whispered Viral over the broken comms. "Your blood. It's the only part they can't change." In Nigeria, the virus song faltered. In Tokyo, screens flashed Dominion code. In Brazil, resistance leaders wept as they forgot their own faces. The custodian wasn't killing Earth. It was erasing its flavor. But Earth fought back the only way it knew how: with madness. "Tag 22 screamed into the mic. Play the virus louder." Geneva engineers rerouted sound towers. People with guitars began screaming the melody from rooftops. Churches rang infected bells. Entire villages banged pots, pans, trash lids, anything. The sound grew louder, and somewhere inside the code, the custodian flinched. Raven stood, barely. His eyes leaked black. He raised his blade and whispered, "You want a perfect world?" He stabbed the ground. "You're gonna choke on ours." His blood sank into Earth. It touched the soil, the roots, the water, and Earth screamed with him. The virus exploded from the planet itself. The skies cracked. A wave of dark light blasted into orbit. It wasn't energy. It wasn't tech. It was will. Billions of human minds screaming through the air into the heavens. No more gods. The custodian reeled. Its hull bent. Its mind shattered because it had never encountered consent. And Earth denied it. Back in orbit, Viral watched it collapse. Bit by bit, glowing cracks spread across its skin. Concepts failed. Math failed. Purpose failed. The custodian, unchallenged for millions of years, was dying. Back on Earth, as pieces of it rained down like broken prophecy, Raven stood tall. He was bleeding from every pore. His lungs hissed, but he was still alive, still human, still wrong enough to win. And the last thing the Dominion saw was a dirty, wounded species with bad teeth, bad tempers, no unity, no perfection, just one message: we decide who we are. And the sky went dark. The sky didn't glow anymore. No ships, no gods, just smoke and stars. Raven stood at the edge of the crater. Blood dried on his skin. A broken blade hung in his hand. The dust beneath him was no longer Earth. It had changed, rewritten, baptized by alien code and human rage. But he was still standing, and that meant one thing. Humanity had won. The custodian was gone. Its remains scattered in orbit. Some pieces entered Earth's atmosphere, raining metal and stardust across cities. Children picked them up like strange fossils. Old women wore them as pendants, and no one worshipped them, because Earth didn't worship anything anymore. In Alaska, Tag 09 removed his mask. For the first time in decades, he felt light. He watched the screens fade to black. No more Dominion signals. No more threats. Just silence. And yet, something stirred beneath the quiet. A new sound. It wasn't fear. It was the sound of Earth speaking. Nigeria built bonfires on the backs of fallen warships. In Moscow, street musicians played the virus melody, but now as a lullaby. In Cairo, resistance leaders painted murals of Raven, not as a hero, not as a god, but as a warning. In Tokyo, hackers used Dominion scrap to build new AI, but this time they gave a choice. And in Brazil, children played war using Dominion drones as toys. They didn't fear the stars. They laughed at them. Viral, 9 stood on a cliff in Peru, watching the wind blow ash across the Andes. He had nowhere to go. His people were gone. The Dominion was dead. But Earth didn't kill him. It let him stay. And he didn't know why, until a farmer handed him a cup of tea without saying a word. And he realized, they don't need to forgive you. They just choose to live anyway. Earth changed, but not in the way the Dominion feared. Humans didn't become conquerors. They became witnesses. And soon, teachers. The virus, once a weapon, became a song. A signal. It pulsed into space. Not as a threat, but as a story. The story of a little blue planet that said no to gods. That refused to be folded. That chose chaos over control. That fought the perfect order. With heartbeats, guitars, fire, and fists. And won. And the stars listened. Not all, but enough. Scattered species, once slaves, once hidden, once quiet, they heard the story. And something lit up in their veins. Something wrong. Something human. They began to rise. One final scene. Raven walks through a rebuilt market in New York. Dominion parts hang like jewelry. Kids ride old drones. Music plays from an ancient speaker. A little girl tugs on his sleeve. She's got dirt on her face. One eye is cybernetic. She looks up at him like he's just a man. Not a hero, just a man. Are they coming back? Raven kneels, shakes his head. Not the same way. She asks, what if they send more? He shrugs. Then we'll teach them. Final line. They thought we were primitive. They were right. But primitive doesn't mean weak. It means wild. And wild always wins.